This video is brought to you by Brilliant, a great way to learn computer science and much more. Go to brilliant.org/Traversy Media, and the first 200 subscribers get 20% off. Hey, what's going on, guys? So React 16.7, which is still in alpha, is introducing something called hooks into the framework, which allow you to use state and other features without having to use a class. And anyone that's worked with React before knows that when you want to use state in your component, which is basically a way to store encapsulated data, you need to use a class. Well, that's changing with hooks. You can now have state within a functional-based component with the useState hook. So in this video, I want to show you how to do that, and I'm going to use a tutorial from scotch.io. It's an article that's written by Sarah Jorgensen, which is very helpful in understanding how to use this. So we're basically going to build a small to-do application with just functional components, okay? So no classes, and we're going to use the useState hook. And if you're interested in this written tutorial from Scotch, I'm going to put the link in the description. It also has the code and stuff like that. So let's jump into VS Code. And as you can see on the left here, I already have just a generic application generated by Create React App, so go ahead and just run that. I haven't done anything else to it. But what we do want to do is make sure that we have React 16.7.0 installed, which is currently in alpha. So if it's stable by the time you watch this and it's included in Create React App, then you don't need to worry about this. But if you're watching this around the time that it's being recorded, then we want to do npm install -uppercase-s, and we want React at 16.7.0-alpha.2, and we also want React DOM, not com, React DOM at 16.7.0-alpha.2. Okay, if you don't do this, you know, and 16.7 hasn't been released and isn't being used, then you're going to get an error. So make sure you do that. All right, so now that that's done, let's go ahead and start our server with npm start. And we're just going to get our landing page that Create React App version 2 gives us. And let's go into our source app.js. So this is basically where we're going to do everything. I'm going to make this smaller. So we're going to just have a few components. They're all going to be functional. Okay, we're not dealing with any classes, and we're going to use the useState hook to be able to have state in these functional components. So I'm going to just get rid of everything here. I'm just going to clear it out. We're going to start from scratch, and let's import React, and then we want to also import the useState hook. Okay, so that's going to be from React. And we're going to create an app function. Okay, so basically our main component here, and then we want to export that. So export default app. Okay, and inside here is where we want to create our state. Now, the way that useState works is it gives us two variables. The first is going to be the value of the state. You can think of it as this.state within a class, or and it gives us a function to update the state, which you can think of as like this.setState within a class. Okay, now, and we're going to use a little destructuring to pull that out. So we're going to say const, set up brackets, to-dos, which is going to be our state, and then set to-dos, which is going to be the method we use to update the state. And we're going to set that to useState, and then our data, our initial data, is going to go in here, which is just going to be an array of objects, of to-do objects. So these objects will have a text value. Let's say learn about React, and then they're also going to have an is completed value, which will be a Boolean, and it's going to be false by default. Okay, let's put a comma here, and then we're going to just copy. Let's copy this down 2 more times and change up the text. So the second one here, let's just do meet friend for lunch. And then this one here, let's say build really cool to-do app. All right, so that's our state. So we have a functional component with state. Now we want a return down here underneath our state. So let's say return. And we're going to put a div with the class name of app. And let's do another div with the class name of to-do list. Now, inside here, we want to map through the to-dos that are in our state, okay? And we can access them with this right here, to-dos. So we want to open up some curly braces, and we want to do to-dos dot map. And I'm not going to explain like every little thing. I would expect that you guys know at least the basics of React if you're watching about hooks. So we're just going to put in our two parameters, which are going to be to-do to represent each to-do in each iteration, and then index, and we're going to put an arrow here. So for each to-do that we map through, we want to output a to-do component, which we haven't created yet. And this is going to take in a few things. It's going to take in a key, which we're going to use the index. It's going to take in an index, which again will be the index, and then it's going to take in a to-do, which is going to be the to-do. All right, so now we need to create this component, and I'm just going to create it up here. So we'll say function to-do, and we pass those three things into it, which are props. So we could do like props and then access like props.todo.text, but I'm just going to use destructuring here, and I'm just going to bring in the to-do and the index that we passed in, and then we're going to return. Let's return a div with the class of to-do. Actually, that's not going to work. So div class to-do. All right, so within here, we're just going to put for now the to-do text. So to-do.text. And we'll save that. I have Prettier installed in VS Code, so it's going to just format it on save. And if we go to our application, we now have all three to-dos listed out here. Now, as far as styling, I'm going to paste in some CSS into the app CSS file, which we actually need to bring in. So I'm going to import, let's say import, whoops. Sorry about that, guys. Nobody important. So let's say app.css. Okay, and then we're going to go to our app CSS file, and I'm just going to paste in some styling here. I'm going to get rid of all this and paste this in, and then it's just some styling for the app div, or the class of app, the to-do list, the to-dos themselves, and then the input. Okay, so if you want to copy that, or if you want to copy it from the Scotch article in the description, you can do that. So let's save that and go back, and it should look like this. All right, so next thing I want to do is add in the to-do form. Okay, so we want a little form down here with a single input so that we can add to-dos to our state. So let's go back to app.js, and let's create the function first, the component. So let's say function to-do form. And the to-do form is going to take in one prop that's going to be the add to-do methods so that we can add a to-do. Okay, so we'll say add to-do. Make sure you put the brackets because we're destructuring it from the props. And then we're going to use the useState hook again here because this form is going to have state to it. Basically the value, whatever the value is. So we're going to say value for the state and then set value for the method that updates the state, and we want to set it to useState, and this is going to be empty by default. Okay, so now let's return from this a form. Don't need an action. What we do need though is a submit handler, so we're going to say on submit equals, and we'll have a method called handle submit. Okay, and inside this form, we're just going to have one input, a text input. So let's say input type text. And in here, let's do a class name of input just to add the styling. And then the value is going to be the value of the state. Okay, and we got that up here from useState. Okay, and then on change, we want to basically run a function, and then we want to call set value, which is what we named the method to update the state. And all we want to do is send in whatever is in that input. So if you type in, go to school or whatever, that's going to be your value in your state. And the way that we get that is with e.target.value. And that should do it. Whoops, actually we need to create the handle submit. So let's say we're going to do const handle submit. Takes in an event parameter. And since it's a submit, we want to make sure we prevent the default action. So we want to do e.prevent default. I don't want to be able to submit if it's an empty value. So let's just say if not value, then we want to return. Okay, then we want to call add to do, which is going to be passed in as a prop. We haven't created that yet, but we will. And then this takes in the value. So it'll add the to do, and then finally we want to clear the form out, so we'll set value to an empty string. Okay, so we have our to do form function or component, which is a function, and which uses the useState hook. Now we need to implement that down here. So in our main app here, we're going to put the form, let's see, we're going to go right under the map, and let's put in our to-do form. And that's going to get passed in add to do, which is going to be a function we create. So we'll say add to do, and we're going to put that right above the return. Now this add to do, it's going to take in the text. Okay, so it's going to take that in as a parameter. And we want to create a variable called new to-dos. Okay, remember we're updating the state. So what we need to do here is take the array of to-dos, and we can use the spread operator to basically copy everything that's already there, and then we just want to simply add in text. Okay, and then for down here we want to say set to-dos, which we use to actually update the state, and we pass in new to-dos like that. Alright, so that should actually work. Let's save. Probably get an error just saying we haven't used something. Oh wait, new to-dos is not defined. That's because this should be a lowercase n. Okay, so let's go try it out. You can see we have our text input here. Actually, we could add a placeholder, make that look a little better. So in our text field, let's say placeholder add to do. Okay, we'll go back and let's say, we'll just say hello and add, and there we go. So it gets added to our state. If we put in another to do, it gets added. And if we open up our Chrome tools, and if you have the React extension installed, the React Dev Tools, and we hover over the app component and we look down here, you'll see base state. We have 5 items in our array, and these are all the to-dos. Okay, and if we look at the form, that should have some state as well. So base state is nothing by default, but if I start to type in here, that gets added. All right, so you can see that we're using state now without having to use classes. So let's finish up this application. I mean, it should be pretty clear on how this works, but I do want it to be a full application. So I want to be able to mark to-dos as complete. So we're going to go into our to-do right here, and let's add to this div a style. So we want to use, since it's a style, we want to use double curly braces, and we want to say text decoration, and I want to set that basically if it's complete, I want a line through it. So we're going to use a ternary operator here. We're going to say to-do.is completed, and then use a ternary. So we want a line through. We want the value to be line through. Else, so we use a colon for else, then we want nothing. Okay, so it's going to just add a line through to the text decoration property if it is completed. So down here inside the actual div where we have the to-do text, I want to have a couple buttons. So I'm going to put a div here, and we're going to have a button, and this is going to say complete. Oops, complete. And this button is going to have an on click, and we're going to set that on click to an arrow function that calls complete to do, that takes in the index because it needs to know which to do is being completed. Now this complete to do is going to actually get passed in as a prop, so we want to pass that in up here, complete to do, just like we did with the add to do down in the form. Okay, so now we need to go down to our app component and create complete to do. So complete to do, and that takes in the index so it knows which one to complete. And we're gonna again just create a variable called new to dos and set that to an array with the current to dos, so we use a spread operator. And then we're going to take new to dos and the current index that's passed in, and we want to mark is completed. We want to set that to true. Okay, and then finally we need to actually set it, because it's not actually being set yet until we call set to dos, which sets the state, and we pass in new to dos. All right, and the last thing we need to do here is add complete to do as a prop to the to do component. So right here, let's say complete to do equals complete to do. Save it. Let's go back, and if we click the button here, you'll see that it adds a line through. It's now complete. All right, obviously it's not going to stay complete. We're not persisting the data. Same thing when we add something here. If we reload, it goes away because we're not persisting the data anywhere to local storage or a database or anything like that. All right, so we're almost done, and the last thing I want to do is I want to be able to delete the to-dos. So same thing, we're going to go back up and add a new button right underneath the complete, except this is going to call delete to do. And let's just put an X here, and then we need to bring that in as a prop as well, so delete to do, and then we'll go down here and create it in our app component. Let's do that. Actually, you know what, let's do remove to do. So we want to remove to do, bring that in here. And we're going to create that right underneath where we did the complete. So remove to do, and that takes in an index. Did I pass in the index up here? Yeah, I did. All right. So that takes in an index, and then what we want to do is we'll just copy this line, this first line of complete to do, because we're just pulling out the to dos using the spread operator, and then we want to splice it out. So we're going to say new to dos dot splice, and we're splicing it out by the index and just one. And then we finally want to just call set to dos and new to do. So you can kind of see the workflow here. You handle your state, do what you need to do, whether it's deleting, adding, or updating, and then you call whatever the function is that you put right here. So in this case, set to dos. So the last thing we need to do is add that as a prop to our to do component. So remove to do equals remove to do. Let's try it out. Let me see what this error is. Remove to do is not defined, and that's because I forgot const. Okay, so let's try it out. We have our X marks here now, so if I click that, it goes away. Good. So if I can add them, we can complete them. See, they all get crossed out, and we can delete them. Awesome. So that should give you an idea of how hooks are going to work, or how they do work, and hopefully this was helpful. If you like this video, please leave it a like, and I'll see you next time. So programming is all about logic with some principles of math and science, and a great place to strengthen your mind and become a better overall programmer is Brilliant. They have some of the most unique types of brain-building courses I've ever seen, including computer science and math courses, quizzes, and more. The tests and quizzes really break down the answers for you when you get them wrong, and they give you a much better understanding of where you went wrong. And it doesn't matter which type of programmer you are or which language you use, Brilliant's concepts benefit everyone in the industry by installing deep problem-solving skills and critical thinking. You won't learn to memorize like many online courses teach, but you'll learn to understand and really wrap your head around all types of concepts that have to do with computer science and just logic in general. They have both free and premium accounts available, so click on the link in the description, and the first 200 people to sign up will get 20% off.